we're here to talk about what just happened, this instant reaction of the Brazil game. Um, I'm feeling good, Mosse. I don't know about you. I am feeling obviously much more positive about this performance. And I just sent off a little post over there on the X machine saying that the performance against Colombia, as horrible as it was, I don't think is necessarily a fair representation of Greg Berhalter or of this team at this moment. And the performance here, although much more positive and better, is probably also not necessarily a fair representation of Greg Berhalter and this performance. But everybody out there that screamed and yelled, and everybody out there that called Greg Berhalter names after the Colombia performance, I hope you're fair in that after this performance, you give him his kudos, because this team turned around from what we said was an absolutely horrible performance against Colombia and not only played better, but if you look at the chances missed, there were plenty of opportunities for this U.S. team to score multiple goals and to win this game against Brazil. And I'm not saying that Matt Turner didn't make big saves either, but it was an entertaining game. And ultimately, I think it was a successful game going into a tournament. Initial thoughts, Mosse?
I guess Greg Berhalter gets to keep his job.
Well, I mean, there's always another game, right? And Copa America is right around the corner. And I think in an actual tournament setting, which is because if this is ultimately about winning a men's World Cup, then tournaments count. My wife, when I told her that the U.S. was playing Brazil, she turned to me and said, "Yeah, but it's a friendly." And so even, she recognizes that you do have to take this with a grain of salt. But I do think that there are certainly positives in that individually these players and collectively this team can look at this and say, are we more this or are we more what Colombia is? Obviously, they might want to be more of what we saw today, but can they replicate this? And it just gets ratcheted up when it comes to a tournament setting. And we all know that this team at some point is going to have to win, not just tie and play well against an elite team, but have to win come the tournament. And chances are it's going to be Colombia or Brazil that the U.S. has to go through. So it's going to get much more serious and much more competitive come Copa America. But if you go through this lineup, I know we're watching the feed here right now. I thought Matt Turner finally made the saves that he was supposed to make, but it has to be said, coming out of the back, that ball that he played out ultimately resulted in the goal. And I'm left wondering, why is he playing that ball? Is it a situation where he thinks that that is the appropriate ball to play out? And, Weston McKennie and him just have a miscommunication. But why are you playing it out there anyway? Because if Weston McKennie doesn't win that ball and doesn't, I guess, bring it down with his chest or flick it on, then your opposition, in this case, Brazil, wins the ball in a very, very dangerous area for the U.S. So I'm glad that Matt Turner made the saves tonight. That's what we want him to do. And to be quite honest, of late, he has not been doing that. I thought the back line was solid. I'm still not sold on Chris Richards. He does not fill me with any type of security. Scally did well, but he's no Serginho Dest, but he did well and well enough, and I guess shut down Vinny, but there is still more to come, and he will be tested. And again, he doesn't fill me with confidence at that right back position. I thought Jedi and Ream were fine, and Ream coming out of the back is still probably our best player with the ball in a back line that does not like to play with the ball, even though at times they are, I guess, forced to do what they're not great at. I didn't think that Gio Reyna had a good game. I thought he was invisible. I thought Weston was okay, not his usual impact self. I thought Musa was really, really good, especially in that first half, in that much more familiar position in the midfield, pushing forward. I thought Wayo was good. Pepe, was kind of invisible for most of the game. Not easy because he's got four guys on him up top, and he didn't get a whole lot of service. Christian Pulisic, I'm glad that he was kept on for the whole game by Greg Berhalter. Let's see who else. Anybody else in there? Yeah. So I mean, that was my initial thoughts in terms of the players. Mosse?
I took a shot at Stu Holden on our last pod, so I do want to give him credit today because we ran into each other in the bathroom at Fox today, which is where I have most of my most interesting conversations. And we talked about this game, and he brought up a good point. there was a bit of a pattern here with CONCACAF teams in these pre-tournament friendlies. Really bad in the first one, much better in the second one. Canada got drilled 4-0 by the Netherlands and came back and got a 0-0 draw against France. Mexico got drilled 4-0 by Uruguay and then came back and only lost 3-2 to Brazil. And the U.S. got drilled 5-1 by Colombia and did what they did today. So maybe it takes a game for these CONCACAF teams to adjust to the step up in class, and then we see a better performance the second go around. Yeah, you could see from the beginning it was a different U.S. team, very aggressive. In the opening minutes, you had that Musa shot off the crossbar, and then
Oof.
Pulisic with a lovely run and a shot that Allison saved. Yeah, it was sort of two different games because in the first half, the U.S. really went at Brazil, and it was back and forth in terms of the flow of the game. The second half took on more of a typical USA Brazil pattern of Brazil having more of the ball and the initiative, and U.S. sitting back and just trying to hit them on the counter. And yet, the U.S. ended up having the two best chances of the second half, probably. I mean, that save that Allison made on Pulisic, that was it right there. That was a chance for the U.S. to get their
Oh my
second ever win
goodness.
against Brazil. But yeah, overall, very positive. So now the U.S., all of a sudden, the narrative changes, and the U.S. goes into this Copa America actually feeling good about themselves and with a little bit of momentum here.
This was not a smash and grab type of result tonight. This was not one of those, and we've seen them over the years, where the U.S. just hangs on for dear life, like you said, and ekes out a result. This was absolutely, this was worthy of your time, and I think that this was justified in terms of the result.
This was the 20th all-time meeting between the two countries. The first ever draw. It had been 18 Brazil wins, 1 U.S. victory, which we all know was you played in the '98 Gold Cup semis, the Casey Keller game. I would venture to say I can only think of one other game between Brazil and the U.S. where the flow was this even and the chances. It occurred in the 1999 Confederations Cup group stage in Mexico. I remember Brazil beat the U.S. 1-0. A teenage Ronaldinho scored the goal. But the U.S. played very well, had great chances. If my memory serves me correct, Dida saved the penalty in that match. And that's always stuck in my head is the one time Brazil played the U.S. and it wasn't this sort of game of the U.S. having to bunker
Right.
down, Brazil having all the possession, all the chances, and the U.S. just trying to hit them on the counter, set pieces, etc. So I think, yeah, this goes down as, and this would even be better than that game I just cited. So I think this is the U.S.'s best ever performance against Brazil, even better than the game they won that you played in the '98 Gold Cup
Yeah,
semi.
and if we're honest with ourselves, Casey Keller stood on his head, saved everything that came at him, including point blank shots from Romario, and then Preki pulled out something of magic to enable us to win. And you're going to need a little bit of that when you are a U.S. team, especially back in the '90s. You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.